And we are live on YouTube. And let me go ahead and start recording on this computer. Let's see here. This is live on YouTube. And let me go ahead and stop that. Could you hear that?
I can.
You could hear me being doubled on YouTube?
I could hear it, but not now.
Okay, cool. This is Male Entrepreneur Podcast, I believe episode number 144. Is that 144? No, 140.
No. Hold on. Let's check this out. Where are we at? We are at
146, I'm sure.
Yeah, 146.
All right. And we're live in 3, 2. All right. Welcome back to the Male Entrepreneur Podcast, the podcast for men who win, with your host, Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep, how you doing today, man?
I'm cold, man. It's freezing cold here today. It's snowing.
You're up in Canada. I'm in Colorado. I'm freezing, so I can only imagine how cold you've got it right now.
Yeah, it's cold, man. And my office is an add-on to the home. And I didn't do it myself, but the guys that built this home prior to me, so they didn't put any heating in here aside from a wood stove, which I actually took out a few years ago. And when I record these podcasts, I actually have to shut all the doors to make sure that there's no other sound that comes in from, my wife in the kitchen or whatever it is in the household. So this room gets cold, man. So anytime I cold, I record something, I freeze my ass off.
Oh my goodness. Why did you take the wood burning stove out of there?
You know what? I was going to keep it. I should have, because it was the dumbest move I ever made. It was like a 350-pound thing too. I remember trying to lug it out with like 2-3 other guys, and it was just like the biggest pain in the butt. Now I'm like, I wish I would have just kept it. It would have came in handy.
Oh my goodness. All right. Speaking of pain in the butt, you said that you wanted to talk about pain in general this week, and I have no idea what you're talking about, because as a guy, I'm strong and I never have to deal with pain. So this is going to be a new one for me.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like when you hurt yourself in front of your kid or something, and they ask you, "Are you okay?" You're like, "Ugh." Right. You just suck it up. But inside you're just like, I need to cry. that feeling. Yeah, no, it's important. And I think it's an important topic because a lot of guys are going through pain right now. There's a lot of guys going through pain in their businesses, or they've lost their job. There's just a lot of guys feeling depression, anxiety. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because it's real. It's stuff that we all feel. It's stuff that we're all going through at some point in time. Even I was today. I'm like, man, I'm just tired of the social isolation. I'm tired of not being able to see my family. I'm tired of not being able to pick up and just go visit my friends when I want to. It's getting to me, but it really comes back to this concept of pain and how to actually grow from pain, because ultimately that's what pain is for. There is some opportunity there for us as individuals, as society, to grow from it. And I know from this COVID, these challenges, that society is going to grow from it. I think people are coming together, family units are coming together, but more specifically on an individual basis, Nathan, why is pain important? I think that's what I want to chat about today.
So before we jump into that, I notice my sister can get on the phone and just talk about feelings and stuff that people are dealing with. And she'll just be on the phone with her friends for 45, 50 minutes. Bella's mom, same thing. I'll go over there sometimes and she'll spend half the time talking to her sister-in-law about all their emotional problems that they're dealing with. And like, they love talking about this stuff. Guys, though, you have to pry it out of us to talk about the things that are causing us pain. Why is it something that girls seem to just love and thrive on these conversations, and guys just avoid them like a dentist appointment or something?
Well, in a lot of ways, it's because women are built to do that, because they're really about absorbing. They're all about their environment. They're very much about the social aspect and the nurturing. That's how women get through. They're more about connecting with other individuals, where men are a little bit different. We're more, I'm not going to say individualistic, but we are more about being able to do it on our own, whereas women are not, right? Women will seek out help and they will openly go out there. That's their way of being successful. Whereas for men, our way of being successful is to do it ourselves, is to go out there and conquer the world by ourselves, or finish that task by ourselves, or build our business by ourselves and say, nobody else helped me, I did it by myself. And so that is the difference between guys and girls. And because if we show pain, we're showing a sign of weakness,
Mm.
whereas women see it almost as a strength. They're there to support each other. It's almost like women want other women to be in pain so they can be there for them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's so strange, but yeah, I've noticed that. So you've told me that a lot of what you do when you're working with guys is actually getting them to open up about that stuff, getting them to talk about some of the things that they maybe wouldn't talk to their other guy friends about. How do you how do you get guys to open up about the things that they're dealing with, about the pain? And especially when, I mean, I'm not gonna talk to my closest friend about it. Why would I talk to some guy that I'm paying, that I barely know, or I just recently met? I don't get how you're able to pull that out of guys.
Well, I think that the first way is just being able to relate to them, and I've seen a lot of stuff. I haven't seen it all by any means, but I've gone through a lot, and I've also realized what a lot of guys go through, right? This is what I've been studying because my dad was an basically he's dealt with alcoholism for years, and so I learned his pain. I learned why he suffered, what he was struggling with from a very young age. So I can understand that myself. And I understand why a lot of guys feel that way, whether it's in their relationship or business, or when something doesn't work. When we get into an argument with our wife or significant other, and how it impacts us, whereas a lot of guys will kind of shake it off. But inside, we're feeling that way. So I think being able to relate, because I've been there, I've seen it, I've felt it myself, that is the easiest way to connect to anybody, is to be able to honestly, we talk about connection based on the good times, which is a great way to connect when things are good, but you can actually form stronger connections through pain, because when you can relate to someone else's pain, there is just this bond that you're able to build that is deeper than anything else. And I share this in one of the bonus chapters, Nathan, where I talk about when my grandfather was passing away, and he was sick, and when the doctor said, he's not going to last very long, it could be a couple of days, whatever that is, my three best friends, the three brothers, they came and stayed with us in the hospital with my brother and I. And they're just like comedians. They made us laugh, and they try to keep us upbeat. But that moment of connecting with my brother and I during our moment of pain, we have the strongest bond now, the five of us, the three of those brothers, my brother and I, that no one can break us apart. And it was based on these moments of challenges. But for guys, you know what? It's important to share our pain, because not only do we connect, but we get to learn from it. How else are we going to get through it if we don't talk about it, and if we don't learn from it, and we don't admit it to ourselves? More importantly, I think that's really what it comes down to, is the reason why a lot of guys get stuck and they can't overcome the pain is because they haven't admitted to themselves, first of all, that they're feeling it, that they're dealing with it. Because once you can admit that, that's the moment of moving forward. And it goes back to the Buddhist principles of suffering, right? Buddhism is really, the whole principle is around suffering and how to avoid suffering. And they talk about the root of suffering being from resisting pain. And when you resist pain, you resist your growth, because if you don't acknowledge it, you can't do anything about it. And the same goes for business. An entrepreneur is listening and they're saying, well, what does this have to do with business? What does this have to do with my career? Hey, look, if your business doesn't feel the pain that it should feel, like a lot of businesses right now are feeling in COVID, you're not going to grow as rapidly as you could. I actually just talked to an entrepreneur that said COVID was one of the best things that happened to him for his business, because he had to revamp everything. He had to go online. He had to change a whole bunch of approaches. He had to pay down a whole bunch of debt, which he was carrying and he was comfortable carrying when he wasn't in COVID. And he said this just opened his eyes up to all the things that he was doing wrong in business. But he wouldn't approach that if he didn't feel the pain and if he didn't accept it. So that is the most important thing I think is just being able to connect and say everybody feels it. We're all human at the end of the day, Nathan, right? You feel pain, I feel pain. Every guy, like the richest guys out there, feel pain. If we think that we don't feel pain, we're just fooling ourselves.
So I'm gonna get your take on something. I think when I had my little brother and my dad die, and they both died about 3 days apart from each other. So on April 10th, my dad passed away, and then 3 days later, my little brother passed away. And I pretty much just emotionally shut down for about 2 or 3 years. And I don't think I dealt with the pain very well.
Mm.
I think I did what most guys do, which is just try to like block it out and avoid dealing with it. Um, I have since then tried to go back and deal with it, and I'm trying to accept it, and um, I'm trying to kind of move past it. But for a long time, it made it to where I couldn't deal with other people very well. I couldn't be in any kind of relationships. It ruined the relationship that I was in at the time, and uh, it had a lot of it had a lot of really negative side effects in my life not dealing with the pain. But I see a lot of guys, I think that this is kind of our go-to, is we try to block out pain or we try to avoid pain. What are some of the other negative side effects that you've seen from guys taking that same I guess plan of action? When something causes pain, they just block it out, pretend that it's not there, avoid dealing with it. What are some of the consequences in life that that leads to?
Well, the biggest consequence is pain turns into suffering. I think that's the big thing, and the difference between pain and suffering is literally it's not just the intensity, it's really the time period. Because if everybody feels pain, whether we stub our toe or do something, we feel it momentarily, right? But if it continues to impact our life, that's when it becomes suffering. And that's really what pain becomes. It festers, and it's just like anything else. It's like a bacteria. If you don't deal with it immediately, it continues to grow. That is the bigger thing. And this happens in relationships. If we take a look at it from a relationship standpoint, pain will turn into one moment of pain, an argument, a disagreement. Someone behaves a certain way will turn into pain, which turns into resentment, which will just literally poison the relationship for a very long time. A disgruntled employee, right, could be working for your organization for such a long time. And if they don't deal with it or you don't deal with it, it's just going to impact you and it's going to continue to eat away at you. Um, and there's this misconception about pain that that pain is necessarily bad, but pain isn't bad. If you take a look at it from a spiritual perspective, good and bad are all part of one. uh, you can say that the dark and the light are part of one. You would not be able to tell the light without being able to see the dark. You would not be able to enjoy happiness if you didn't understand what pain was about. And so the people that feel the pain the most, you can actually express and feel happiness the most. So I think what ends up happening is if you avoid the pain, you eventually numb yourself. And I did this for years. I did this for a very long time myself, where I avoided pain and therefore I wasn't as happy as I probably could have, because they're just two opposite sides of the same coin. That's all it is, right? Pain and happiness. If we can feel pain, we can feel happiness that much more.
Well, there's also, and this is kind of one of my a saying that I saw one time, probably scribbled on a wall somewhere inside of a bathroom or something, but it stuck with me, which is the saying, "A sword isn't forged in a bed of feathers." Every time I feel like life is raking me through the coals, I'm like, "Well, swords aren't forged in beds of feathers." But you brought something up, and I want to get your take on it before we're out of here. Um, what are some healthy ways that for guys to I guess I'm asking for me in particular, but I'm sure there's probably guys listening that have the same question. What are some ways that are healthy for us to deal with our pain, rather than just bottling it up or blocking it out or avoiding it altogether? What are your thoughts on some ways that personally me I could deal with my pain in a more healthy way?
Yeah. So what I'm going to say first of all, and is if you haven't read the chapter on suffering, sacrifice, and suffering, and in the Complete Man book, read that because it'll go down into depth about that. But I'm going to give you some basic tactics or techniques. The first one is to actually accept it. The faster you accept your pain, the better you'll actually, or faster you'll recover, right? It's like if you deny that your arm is broken, I'm not going to go to the doctor, I'm not going to go to the doctor. Well, yeah, it's probably going to take you a lot longer to get it fixed, right? The sooner you actually admit and actually deal with it, the better it will be, the faster your outcomes. The second piece is to understand you are not your pain. A lot of the times we bring our pain into who we are as an individual, right? If it's a broken relationship, it's a failed business, for example. You guys are out there. I know you're listening. If you've had a failed business or you've been fired from your job, that pain, you might have taken it on as part of your identity. And you might have said, well, I'm not good enough. Or maybe I'm a screw up and therefore I don't deserve it. You have to separate the pain from who you are as an individual and understand that pain is just based on a situation. It's not who you are. Please, please, that's the biggest thing that you can understand, right? Separate yourself from it. That's the second piece. The other piece is to distance yourself from pain. If we take a look, our minds are mainly visual. And what we end up doing is we end up playing the scenario over and over again. That moment that caused us pain, we will replay it back in our minds visually a lot of times. If it's not while we're awake, it could be in a nightmare while we're going to sleep or unconsciously. So distancing ourselves from the pain is important. Actually physically taking a look. If it's still going to bother you, then putting that mental picture as far back away as you can and giving it as less details. Because what most people do is we replay it and we replay every little detail. Oh, that person yelled at me and I remember their face and I remember the tone of their voice and every little detail about it. What that does is it just intensifies the pain. And so when you put it at a distance and you force yourself to not see the details, force yourself to say, okay, if I'm going to deal with this pain, I'm just going to let it be from a distance. I'm going to make it blurry. I'm not going to make it up close in my face, because that what that does is it's there, but it's not as intense.
Mhm.
So it actually becomes an exercise that you can practice, right? Because some people, I just can't block it out. Okay, well, you don't need to block it out then. Just put it at a distance.
Interesting.
Um, these are three simple things that you can do. And always, the last part, Nathan, is always look at the end outcome. Always look at the light at the end of the tunnel. There will always be light. And if you focus on the light, you will get there. If you focus on the dark, you won't. You're going to be stuck in the dark.
Okay. You mentioned a couple times your new book, The Complete Man. If listeners want to check that out, where can they go to check that out?
Yeah, check out this awesome webpage. You got to go to completemanbook.com. Um, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I think it's really important you take a look and you actually read through it thoroughly and understand the difference of what most guys live like and what most guys could live like, if you actually changed your approach on certain things and aspects in life. But completemanbook.com is the place to go.
One more time.
completemanbook.com.
Awesome. And if people want to check out more episodes of the podcast,
Check out mailpodcast.com or youtubeformen.com.
sweet. Pretty a lot of maybe not the easiest stuff to talk about in this week's episode, but I appreciate you kind of navigating through the seas of pain. Until next time, man, we'll catch you later.
Yeah, until next time.
All right. Stop the YouTube.
Oh,